Hi, I'm Toby.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Jenni, and we're from Ceruleo. Welcome to episode 4 of Burying the Dead Behind the Scenes.
Today we're talking about us, about Ceruleo, and we're also answering some questions from you, our audience. Ceruleo were formed in 2014 at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. We were all doing master's degrees at the time, specialising in early music, apart from Kate. She was the only one who wasn't at Guildhall at the time.
So in our first concert, we performed the Monteverdi duet Zefiro Torna, and we did a masterclass with Emma Kirkby, and we were saying that we didn't really have a name and we weren't sure what to call ourselves, and she was like, oh, you should call yourself something nice in Italian. Think about, is there anything in any of the music that you're singing? And we happened to be doing Zefiro, so we looked through and we thought, oh, is there any words that stick out? And Ceruleo seemed to be a good one because it means azure in Italian, so it gave us a useful concert dress idea. So we always wear blue, and it seemed to be nice and Italianate. Yes, I remember. I thought that it would be really cool to call us H+. It was not cool.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Sounds like a disease.
Yeah.
It suited the music that we wanted to play, and just that these were the people who were around, these were the people who were interested.
For me, are 24 Hours in Italy.
London Baroque Festival in St John's Square.
And Surbiton Salons when it was 39 degrees.
Yeah, if you know anyone with deep pockets who's looking to sponsor a recording, do get in touch. Yes, that's a very intelligent question, because yes, I did learn the guitar first. I'm afraid that's about the most interesting part of it. It's not a fascinating story, I'm afraid. I learned the guitar in music college, and in my second year, I was at Trinity at the time in Greenwich. They encouraged you to take a second study if you liked. And I couldn't decide between learning the lute and jazz guitar, because I really like jazz, I still love listening to jazz. But I was never really into playing it. I had some friends who played jazz, and still do now, and are much better at it than I ever was. So I thought I'll leave that to them. And I played a bit of Bach and a bit of Dowland and stuff on the guitar, and I really liked that. And someone told me, they have this teacher called David Miller, and he's really good, so you should put him down on your list as your preferred teacher. So I did. And he really got me into the whole thing. He would come and bring an instrument that he wasn't using for a few months and lend it to me and give me a wad of music and tell me how it worked, and then come back a few months later. And over a period of years, I realised that I liked playing that music. It suited me quite nicely, and it allowed me to work with people in a way that I enjoyed. And so I haven't really looked back since. World tour.
Performing together again.
So we'd done a project about the Great Fire of London in collaboration with the Museum of London, in which we'd used a lot of Purcell's music and created a sort of little narrative programme around the Great Fire of London. We knew we loved Purcell, we knew we had all this music relating to the Great Fire, and so we were looking for a way to tie the two together somehow and create something a little bit bigger and a bit better, and more of a spectacle, more of a show. And so we approached Clare Norburn with the idea of tying these two threads together, the Purcell music and the idea of the Great Fire of London and that period in history.
It's our first sort of larger scale, more theatrical type show, and Restoration era English music really feels like our home turf, so it made sense that is what it would be based on. And Henry Purcell in particular, because he's the sort of crowning jewel in Restoration English music.
tricky one to answer because we know so little about his life. Sort of the facts of Purcell's life are few and far between, and so Clare had to do a lot of stitching of the little we did know with historical events that were going on and imagining how he might have reacted. We don't know for sure whether he was affected by the Great Fire or the plague at all. He must have known about it. He was 7 at the time of the Great Fire, and so she is trying to imagine and envisage what a child might feel if they were plunged into that position. But in terms of facts about Purcell's life, personally, I'm not sure I actually know any more than I did before we started.
I think, although, as Emily says, we maybe didn't learn lots of new facts because there aren't many new facts to learn. Just the process of hearing the script so many times and sort of seeing Niall trying to live inside it did make me think about something slightly differently. Like, I knew that there were changes at court while he was working there, and different kings and queens and different fashions coming and going, but actually seeing someone take you through that made me think a little bit more about what that would really mean to be working in that environment and how you might react to it and what your options are really as a composer and as a musician at that time.
I think also just making Purcell more human. We sing and play so much music, we see a name on the top right of a page and we know that that's the composer, and we don't necessarily think a lot about what their life was like. As Toby was saying, the things that affected what they were writing. And Purcell's music is so emotive. He's such a good painter of words, and he gets really to the crux of the emotion. And so I think just seeing the person behind it, even if that wasn't necessarily 100% the real person, he just humanised him.
It's terrifying. You have to sometimes stand up and walk around. And I mean, I feel completely pathetic saying it because the other two people in this conversation were effectively playing roles in a fully staged opera and had actual lines and dance moves and all sorts of stuff to do, and like marks to hit with when you blow the petals this way and when you put this hat on. But for me, just having to hold a fake candle and walk very slowly up and down was really challenging. Much harder than trying to play the right chord at the right time. Not that I get that right all the time, but you know, I'd much rather have that problem to deal with.
I think it actually provided a real sort of spark to the performance, the fact that no performance was exactly the same. We had an amazing stage team. Natalie and Mark did such a good job of adapting the staging and the lighting to every single venue, whether it be a tiny narrow church aisle or a proper stage space like LSO St Luke's where we had a cavern to perform in. And I think this variety and the fact that the stage was a very slightly different shape and size every single time, so we had to rehearse the show on the new stage and in the new space, and it provided a life and a spontaneity to the performances that really kept the show alive. Spoken text.
Walking slowly with a candle.
Remembering packing. Remembering everything that we needed to take.
I loved working with Niall. He was wonderful. He provided a real freshness, and because of his history of comedy and sort of stand-up and improvisation, every show just had little extra nuances that kept it really fresh for all of us, and he was such a joy and delight to work with.
I'm sure most of us have done some performances involving actors before, but largely where I was sort of in a band over there and then there's some actors who are acting sort of over there. So it was really nice for me to work with an actor in a situation where we really, in a small group, and we felt part of the same unit.
And I think it was really nice for Emily and I to have someone else to bounce off. Previously in all of our concerts together, we've had to create storylines with just the two of us and having a third person, which meant that we could have relationships with to other people made quite a difference.
All the performances. I love performing this show.
I would say, specifically about the performances, providing a theatrical context to some of Purcell's theatrical music that was unique.
In the next episode, we will chat to our costume designer, Hannah Pearson. Please subscribe so you don't miss out.